Hello and welcome to Fireside Chats with Veterans. My name is Don Randolph and I'm here today with Mr. Douglas Hobbs. Mr. Hobbs was in the Army Air Corps, so before there was an Air Force, Mr. Hobbs was serving America in that Air Corps. Mr. Hobbs, I wanted to ask you today, when you first started thinking about being in the Army Air Corps, did you join voluntarily, or were you drafted, or what were the circumstances? What was life like as before you went into the service?
Well, I think I was probably in the 8th grade or 9th, somewhere along there, and the war was getting more severe in Europe, and I was worried to death that I wouldn't be able to make it. I just knew it was going to be over before I got to go.
Mm-hmm.
And time rocked along, it got worse, and everybody else got in, and finally one day I got a letter from the government and wanted me to represent them. I'll not go into the rest of that, but that's what it amounted to.
Okay.
And I was drafted.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to Camp Forest, Tennessee for indoctrination, or I guess to be sworn in.
Mm-hmm.
And had a week at home and went to Fort Benning, Georgia.
For basic training? For your basic training? That was at Fort Benning?
No, that was still getting shots and poking and punching and looking and cleaning your ears out and all sorts of good stuff. And I finally got through that, and everyone was interviewed to see what branch of service they thought they wanted, and I thought I wanted Air Force. So I went to Miami, Florida for basic training.
Okay.
And after basic, we went to gunnery school. No, after basic, we went to mechanic school at Shepherd Field, Texas.
Okay.
After Shepherd Field, we graduated. We went to gunnery school in Tyndall Field, Florida.
Tyndall, okay.
And after gunnery school, we went to Salt Lake City for assignment, well, crew assignment, really. That's where we joined the pilots and bombardier and the gunners, and all of us were crewed up there.
Okay, so, and you stuck together as a crew once you got your crew assignment at Salt Lake City? After
Salt Lake City, we went to Colorado Springs for phase training in B-24s.
B-24s, okay.
Triple threat airplane. Mm-hmm. Bomb them, shoot them, or fall on them. Anyway, that wasn't necessary, was it?
No, that's great. Bomb them, shoot them, or fall on them. That's
Anyway, we got through phase training, and we went to Morrison Field, Florida for overseas assignment. Mm-hmm. And we went to England via the southern route, which is down through the Caribbean. Mm-hmm. I can't think of the state, but anyway, we ended up in North Africa and finally in England.
Okay.
The 44th Bomb Group at Sculthorpe, England.
Okay.
And then the fun began. And as I've said many times, you go to the theater, but you don't like the show, and that's what this came down to. Mm-hmm. At any rate, we were probably the latter part of June of '44. We started flying combat missions, and I flew 28 of the things, and the Germans shot the airplane up.
That you were in. Shot the airplane that you were in up.
Yeah. In August the 6th. So my wartime lasted from June to August.
Now, were you based in England and flying bombing missions into Germany?
We were based at Sculthorpe, England.
Okay, and flying bombing missions into Germany, and you had sometimes you had fighter planes to escort you, and sometimes you didn't. Is that the way it was?
At first, they were only able to go, I don't know, maybe to the French-German border on account of their fuel load. And they obtained or designed long-range fuel tanks for it. And the 51s and 38s and the 47 jugs could go, I don't believe as far as Berlin, but they could go a great distance into Germany.
Okay. So what happened on your, how many missions had you flown all the way up to August, that August the 7th?
27.
27 missions in that short a period of time.
28 was the last one.
Okay. And what happened on that last one?
Well, we were over Hamburg, Germany at around 25,000 feet. And we were hitting an oil refinery. And someone looked up in our aircraft and noticed another B-24 almost bottom side up above us, which is bad news in any case. And the aircraft commander was notified, and he let the airplane down a little. Well, at that altitude, you don't let them down a little because they are loaded to the hilt and they don't like to fly.
Right.
Anyway, he let the airplane down a bit, and when we got out of the group of aircraft, the German radar bracketed us, and they got the right engine and the front passenger section with 3 or 4 88 millimeter missiles, bullets, whatever. And fire broke out in the bomb bay, and it was probably 75 or 100 yards behind us, stringing along.
My.
And we were not, the bell was rang to desert the airplane, but there was no
with that much flame coming out the back of the plane, that would have made it difficult to egress, would it not?
Well, it was difficult to stay in there. But anyway, we didn't get the bailout signal. We got the preparation thing. And someone called the aircraft commander, and there wasn't any communication. And we left. The people in the rear of the airplane left. The 2 gunners, the tail, right and left waist gunner and the tail gunner. And the radio operator was back there because we were a Mickey airplane, which meant we had the capability to bomb through clouds.
Okay.
And only one person made it out of the front of the airplane, the bombardier. But we had a command pilot, command navigator, and our own crew, and none of them survived.
None of them made it. A lot of folks don't remember those were prop-driven airplanes, and at those altitudes, your plane was prop-driven. The bomber that you were flying in was a prop-driven airplane. At those altitudes, the air is so thin that if you have any kind of load at all, it's difficult to fly.
Only jet aircraft that you had seen in those days was the ME-262 and another one, I can't remember the designation, that were German.
The Messerschmitt was the 262.
They were very scary, but at that time they hadn't advanced to where they were really a problem.
So what happened with you? What happened next after that?
Well, I bailed out of the airplane. It's funny. The stupid parachute got to swinging like a pendulum. I could shinny up shroud lines, and it'd quit. And I'd get tired, and I'd let down, and it'd go again. And that terrified me anyway. No, it didn't really. I was already terrified. Anyhow, the place was full of pieces of airplanes and fighters and all sorts of stuff going on. And we finally got on the ground, and I landed along a drainage ditch, and I pulled off my chute and whatever else I wanted to get rid of, and hid them in that drainage ditch, and ran into a nice old German farmer. I think he had a 10-gauge shotgun. And we made friends there. I agreed with him and held up my hands and went his way. But that about limits that part of it. I mean,
Now, how long did you stay with the German? Was the German farmer by himself?
Yeah.
He was. And was he?
No, he wasn't by himself. He had that shotgun.
Okay. But was he an older gentleman, or was he?
Oh, I'd say he was. He may have been 70, but he was up pretty ancient. Well, the trick to this is that every able-bodied man that could be had was in the German army.
Right.
And but we went to a state air base and was interrogated by the commander, who I'll never forget, that nice little old fella. He had a pair of Palm Beach trousers on and a quirt, and he's always whacking them boots with that quirt. But anyhow, we were lined up and we had to go in and report to him. And my tail gunner was like me. He didn't always know when to keep his mouth shut. And I was right behind him. And as he went in there, I heard whap. And the German commander had said something to him, and he mouthed him and he smacked him. Well, come my turn, I was a nice little fella, and I reported the way you're supposed to, and he didn't bother me. But he did ask me if there's anything that he could do for me to make me comfortable. And I told him I'd like to have my coat back. Oh, why, yes, we'll certainly take care of that. You know, I haven't seen that coat to this day.
Oh, my. So you were a prisoner of war, really, at that point?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, that's what he told me.
It sounds like they were at least somewhat, they tried to be somewhat accommodating. Were there a lot of you, or were you, what was the arrangement for, were you interned with other prisoners of war, or were you just in your smaller group? Or?
Well, at this time, we were just sort of grouped together, and they listened carefully to see which ones knew the others, and you could pick the crews out in this manner. And we stayed at State Air Base for a little while, I don't know, a week maybe, and they dispatched me and another fellow whom I didn't know with 2 guards. We had a boat ride down the Rhine River to Frankfurt.
Okay.
Well, we went to Frankfurt to the big interrogation center. And it was really pretty dumb because I didn't know anything except my commander. We knew nothing of operations and all this thing, decision making. But anyway, this lasted a week or so, and we finally got sent out to a new camp near Saarbrücken, Germany. And it didn't last long until the spring offensive started.
Okay.
And they took us back to Gross Tissue, which is due north of Posen, Poland, of about 100 miles, I guess, 75 miles. And there we stayed until February. And on February the 2nd, we started trying to evacuate from the Russians.
Okay.
To avoid their push. And we walked for 3 months. And we walked to the Holland, some of us to the Holland border. And it was, everything was just sort of hit or miss. Nobody seemed to know where we were going or why, but we were just going.
Well, the German army was in retreat at that time.
Oh, yeah.
The Russians were advancing, and you were kind of caught in the middle of that.
Well,
Is that?
well, the Germans didn't want us to be overrun by the Russians because they were afraid of the attitude that we might display. But this lasted 3 months.
So you walked all the way to Holland?
I did. And slept in barns, slept out in the field, or anywhere you happened to stop. And
were some of the members of your crew, did some of the members that survived that was in your crew, were they with you on the walk, or?
Yes.
They were? Okay.
4 was
Okay.
with us. And anyway, we were very short of food and well, even water, safe drinking water. But the Germans themselves didn't have anything to eat. The common German soldier got his rations for a week in a little can about that big. And I guess he probably pilfered everything he could find. We did.
So what did you do after you got to Holland? What?
Well, this time we were in a barn. We had shelter. And we woke up one morning, there wasn't anybody there but us. And in about an hour, English major and his aide showed up, and that was the turnover of command.
Okay. So you identified yourself to the English?
Oh, we were still all gathered together. You couldn't miss us.
Okay. and what did the Englishmen have to say, or what did they?
Well, he was proud of us. We almost beat the poor fellow to death, you know, and slapped him on the back. Anyway, he told us more or less how the war was progressing.
Because you had been, how long had you been a prisoner of war at that point? How long had it been?
9 months.
9 months?
Just long enough to find out I didn't like it.
So after encountering the English soldiers, then how did you make your way back to did you make your way back to the American Army or someone
That's
who?
a long story. And I don't think I'll tell you.
Okay. So how much longer before you were able to return home?
Well, that goes along with the story. Nevertheless, a friend and myself managed to get to England. And we vacationed in England for a while. And finally went to London and got on a banana boat and came back to the States. I got out of the PW camp on the 5th of May, and I got home on the 4th of July.
And you made that trip on your own?
No. We went where we wanted to go, and then went and chiseled transportation off the government.
Okay, but you didn't go on Army transports, or you weren't under directives?
This banana boat was an Army transport.
Oh, okay, I understand. Okay.
And it was that.
Okay.
A converted one.
Okay. Wow. So you got back to the United States around the 4th of July. And what did you do then? Did you go home, or?
I went home. We had 60 days leave. All ex-PWs had 60 days leave. If you re-enlist in the military, they'd give you 60 other days. And I took advantage of it. And I stayed in the Army. in Army,
Mm-hmm.
and I won't go into this, but was fortunate enough to get to go to Korea.
Okay. So you re-enlisted, and then what was your what base were you assigned to after that? After you re-enlisted?
Seward Air Base,
Okay.
Smyrna, Tennessee.
Smyrna.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then from there you went to Korea?
No, from there I went to Randolph Field.
Okay.
From Randolph Field, I went to Japan, came back from Japan in 49, and by 50 I was back in Japan.
Okay.
For the Korean War.
Okay. And how long did you stay in the Korean? How long did you serve in Korea?
A year.
A year. And was your enlistment up at that time, or was your enlistment up at that time, or?
No. I'd have to look at the form. I really don't know, but at one time I was on an indefinite enlistment.
Okay.
And it went, I think I ran it several years.
Okay. When did you come home for good? When did you come home for good?
63.
1963?
Yeah.
Okay. So you were in for 20 years.
Yeah.
Total, you were in for 20 years.
Yeah.
Whenever you came back from Korea, what was your job in the
I was
service?
a flight engineer on a cargo airplane.
Okay. And that was your...
Well, that was the Korean job.
Okay.
Later on B-29s and B-50s and C-97s and
Okay.
tankers.
Tankers and transport planes? Yeah. Okay. Well, Mr. Hobbs, I want to thank you. Thank you for coming by today. Thank you for sharing your experience.
You're welcome. I guess we could have gone over it and I could have thought up some other stuff.
Well, thank you very much for watching. I want to thank again Mr. Hobbs for sharing his stories with us. I want to say thank you to Ben Lohman. Thank you to the Sparta Rotary Club. If you haven't done so yet, and you get a chance, go to downtown Sparta and check out the new Veterans Park. I want to thank you for watching. And again, my name is Don Randolph, and thank you. Good night.